Okay, welcome everyone. It's good to have everyone here today. We have a great show for everybody here. My name is Jared Murray. I'm the CEO of Alive Innovations, and as many of you know, we're always looking to try to find the latest innovative technology, people, and things around the world. And we're very happy to have with us today a special guest. Her name is Karen Urbanek, and we are very privileged to have you here. Karen, can you say hi?
Hello, everyone. So glad to be here. Thank you, Jared.
What you will learn about Karen is if you were a little bit depressed or a little bit low in energy, by the time you get done listening to her, you are going to want to run a marathon. So we really appreciate you being here. We're always on that quest trying to find people that can really contribute to the welfare of others. And I think really Karen has set a fine example for us all to follow. She's been a key leader in education for many years, an author of quite a few different books, and I guess without further ado, let's introduce you to Karen. Karen, can you introduce yourself to us?
Sure. Well, my name is Karen Urbanek, and Jared, oh my gosh, I met you almost a decade ago, so it's been a while. And it was over radionics. It was over bioenergetics and energy medicine, and we're still hanging out. So, I love it.
Yes.
That's right. We're the groupies. But I just love energy medicine. And having raised 10 children, well, 11, we have one that kind of came to us when she was 18 as well. And she's with us. But it's been amazing. I've relied on muscle testing and applied kinesiology and EDS testing and bioenergetics and radionics for years because it works. It's amazing how much you can find. So your unit, I'm on fire. I've learned more. I've been watching your videos. I'm super excited. And I'm so glad that I could be here today. Thank you, Jared.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice and what you're focusing on right now.
Well, I for one, is just education. So we had 2 organic grocery stores. We had 2 wellness centers. We had 2 different cafes because I live to eat because I love food. And so it's all delicious.
Who doesn't, right?
I know. Hey, and so, but and that was wonderful. I love the hundreds of thousands of people we've met. I mean, it's been amazing. And the tens of thousands of clients that I've been able to work with or present to. So it's been a very rewarding journey. But about a couple of years ago, I was like, I really want to focus on education. That's all I want to do. So that's all we do. We created a course that's offered worldwide, the Therapeutic Nutritional Counseling course. And I just educate. So I do a lot of education. That's my passion. Wow. So right now, because I work with so many of the TNCs on a daily basis, I want to get your unit into everybody's office because it's what the whole world needs. I love it. Your unit has brought together everything that I've studied for so many years. It's sound therapy, light therapy, everything. It's just wonderful. So
we appreciate
show off your unit.
Yeah, we appreciate that. I want to ask you one other question for those that are not familiar with what the TNC is. What is the TNC?
Oh, sure. Well, natural medicine, there's so many forms of natural medicine and natural healing that I actually combine them. So I have about 115, 125 natural modalities of healing that I teach, from drum therapy and chromotherapy to acupuncture, acupressure. So applied kinesiology, we teach all of it. So we teach art therapy. I mean, like I said, you name it. But what's neat is when we train a TNC, they can meet with a client and be able to help them understand herbology or essential oils or chromotherapy or feng shui, because not everybody's the same. People have different belief systems that they've been raised with or eating habits. And so someone, from Wisconsin may think feng shui is incredibly weird, where someone, from California is like, let's do this, So it gives you a huge foundation, as well as all the diets, and especially how the biggest thing I love teaching is how cells function. My little slogan, it's a cell thing, but it is, you're only as healthy as your cells, so we teach a lot of biology, physics, and science, and how the organs and the glands work in the body. So it's fun. We love it.
Great. Well, we're very privileged to have you here. And Alive Innovations is about, as I mentioned, trying to find innovative ways to live better, stronger, healthier, and happier. What's unique about this is we're trying to expand everybody's knowledge. It's not just one course fits all. We're looking at all the different modalities that not only the Oscan in this case can get dialed into a practice, but also other things, like as we mentioned, that Karen teaches, that are people need to explore a little bit. So Without further ado, we're going to, we appreciate that, Karen, and I can definitely tell you that we are all extremely impressed by what you've been able to accomplish. We're going to look at the webinar here, and as we told you, we're going to focus on energy medicine, and we have Karen here as our guest. We appreciate that. Some of the things that we're going to be looking here is looking at the history of radionics and what radionics is, what does it do for you, how does it work, how does it impact tissue, and so forth. Then we're also going to look at and answer another question, is how radionics can help your own practice, how you can incorporate it. You know, sometimes these vague modalities, Karen, you probably had people come to your class in the fast and say, okay, now that I have this knowledge, how do I impact others with it? So that's one of the things that we're going to try to talk a little bit about. And then also one of the things that's a necessity, unfortunately, I wish we could all trade chickens, but we can't. How can you actually make money with your knowledge now and what you know and with the equipment and so forth? So those are things that we're going to focus on in moving forward. Does that sound good?
Oh yeah, sounds awesome. Yep.
All right. All right, well, first of all, let's look at a brief video on the history of radionics and see really, first of all, what it is, where it comes from, and how it was developed and the power behind it. So let's pause for a moment and look at that video.
Physicist Heinrich Rudolf Hertz, father of frequency, began modern science's journey of discovery as frequency relates to human health and function. Hertz found that virtually every life force involved electrical energy at some level. Nikola Tesla discovered that all objects have a resonant frequency and that by reversing the phase of its wavelength, dramatic changes in behavior could be evoked. For example, he nearly leveled buildings by simply reversing the resonant wavelength of a building's steel beams 180 degrees out of phase. This is the secret of how singers shatter wine glasses. Albert Einstein posited that everything in life is vibration. Royal Robert Reich discovered that by reversing the sin wave of a pathogen, he could kill deadly pathogens in the human body without harming the cells of the body. Dr. Anthony G. Holland of Novobiotronics demonstrated this with the harmless organism Blephariasma. Are other organisms harmed by this? Here's a paramecium being destroyed, and notice another organism swimming around unharmed. Here is an example of leukemia cells being destroyed with the same technology. Ovarian cancer cells can be destroyed as well. The brackets identify cancer cells being destroyed. Here is an example of pancreatic cancer being destroyed. Dr. Max Stanley Chartrand wrote a paper on this technology, specifically pointing to the AO scan as the latest in technology. What makes the AO scan stand out above the rest? It not only can detect abnormalities, but also has a correction mode. Notice what Dr. Chartrand stated about the AO scan. There are no reported risks or side effects from the technologies underlying the AO scan. In addition, it is supported by a plethora of research from peered publications, independent research analysis, and practical experiences on millions of patients throughout the world, including the astronauts at NASA and the Russian cosmonauts. It is used by physicians, chiropractors, naturopaths, etc. in many countries in the world with reported success, and is the only treatment protocol that can be offered remotely. Dr. James Oshman made this frank observation. When we leave energy medicine out of our biomedicine, we miss out on a vast amount of our healing potential. Research into radionics started many years ago, but today we can harness this incredible healing power with the AO scan.
Okay, we're back. So what did you think? What do you think, Karen?
Well, I love radionics. Like I said, it's one of my passions. So this is like old news, but amazing. I'm just excited that people get to see it
Yeah.
and become more aware how they can bring it into their own home and that's and their client base.
Yes, yes, yeah. Well, it's, I every time I see the video, I always reminisce about the power of sound.
Mhm.
They're using these loud speakers now to disperse crowds and things like that. We
Mhm.
know that sound can impact um, people, and if you think about like even a dog dazer or something like that, it has effects on humans. But even on the minute qualities, we see how it impacts matter in many respects. So that is really interesting. When you're teaching your courses, about radionics and about EDS technology, uh, is there a common thread or question that people always have? Why do they want to get into this? What?
Sure. Well, and actually, when I was thinking about radionics, and just when you were asking that question, I got the people are like, "Does this really work? Is this really true?" I'm like,
Mhm.
"Yes, it really works." Like, we owned 3 buildings in Wisconsin, and it was an old Catholic property, and we had bats. So what did we get? We got radionics. We had a bat machine that would put out the wave that would keep all the bats out of the buildings, and it was something no human could hear. And so radionics can be used to get rid of mice in your field, insects. But oh my goodness, wouldn't that be awful if we could, for free, clear all of our millions of acres of insects by using radionics? But then we'd have a big hole in how much money is made in the industry. And so radionics is very effective, and it's been effective since the dawn of time. So I think the biggest hang up people have is, oh, does this really work? But then once they understand, yep, this is what works. How do you feel when you listen? I always tell the women, how do you feel when that sexy man comes on the radio? And you're like, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
Or that waitress, hello, can I take
Yeah.
your order? And radionics works, and you're exposed to radionics every day. So
Mhm.
now what you've done with Alive Innovations is built it so we can utilize it, and we can have access to it and directly tune into things that are going on inside of our body
Thank
safely.
you. Thank you. That's you're exactly spot on. And for all of those that are you tuning in, I do see quite a few of you found the chat box. So feel free to type in your questions. We'll do our best to get to them all. But feel free to type in your questions, and we'll ask the questions. We had a few come in, which they're talking about learning radionics and EDS testing. How difficult you've seen some of the legacy software that's out there with EDS. How difficult would you say, in this case, our Oscan is compared to some of the other legacy devices?
I have used the legacy devices and it's not easy. It took
Yeah.
months and months of training and just repeating usage to actually, and then it's still dependent on how good you are. It just is.
Yep.
And so this unit is easy peasy. There's no training needed. Anybody in the world could operate this unit and use it. There's not even a question. No one should worry about that at all. The
Well,
biggest thing I teach people, Jared, and this is a good place to put this, is when someone is choosing someone to spend 500 $600 with, or $300, whatever their devices are, they really, you should look at the device, but you need to look at the person you're getting the scan from, because if it's someone who doesn't understand the body and doesn't have a lot of history, you're going to have a different approach than someone who has been doing this for a decade or 3 decades. And so education is a key. So even though the unit is amazing and they're going to get a 24-page report, and they can read it
mhm.
themselves and learn a lot, you really do want to be a technician who is studying and learning every day, because you will be able to enhance what your clients are learning.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that's one of the things that we at Alive Innovations we strive to do, is team up with and educate people on it. And I'm fortunate enough to know you, and we've been looking at coordinating our educational platform even further in the future. That you're exactly right. There seems like, doesn't there seem like there's uh, we want to focus on where the root issue is, right? So how do you think that, what's your opinion on how this technology helps us to get to that root cause?
Well, and that's one of the questions that not only is going to come when people are watching this webinar, as many will, is the root cause is it? I mean, that's, if you're not addressing the root cause, I actually stood in front of an essential oil conference that I had been asked to speak at, and I actually followed a very prominent doctor. And I think I probably said something that offended some of them, because these are all very prominent essential oil MLM people. And I was like, if you're giving essential oil out for a headache, if you're, using peppermint or wintergreen for a sore arm, and you are not addressing the root cause, you're just as guilty as a pharmacist or a medical doctor who's prescribing something without getting rid of the root cause. And I said it in good humor. And I know I didn't make any enemies, but I really brought up a point that even in natural healthcare, people like to make money. And they're going to make a lot of money selling you products that are not going to get you well in the long run. I see it. I'll have clients that come in with cancer and they bring in bags of products that they've been using for 6 years. Well, if it worked, you would have only needed it for 4 months, or 6 months. And so I think that it's right on is getting to the root cause, because it'll save your client a lot of money, and anybody, just peace of mind.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that. And that's really what it's about. I think everybody that's listening, and I still see more questions popping in. One question that just came in here is, how complicated is it to learn? Karen, we did some work with you in the past. So your feelings on time frame compared to other legacy systems, does it take a technique with pressure? What's your opinion?
Nope, this is the easiest system I've ever seen. And this is the most comprehensive system I've ever seen. I literally, when I was thinking about the webinar, I was remembering, I have all these flower essences and homeopathies and all these different herbs. And we had our own lab that made products specifically for our building, for our wellness center. And we had, access to, hundreds of, different products. And the scan has everything in it. So if I'm looking to see what their iron level, or if I'm looking to test what, homeopathy or a flower remedy that would be most beneficial, I can find that. There's 500,000 different frequencies or more, and they're always added to. That's what's so great about this technology and using computers, is you can continue to add new frequencies and build upon what's already there. So extremely easy. And very effective. Within half an hour, you're going to have answers that you can go immediately and start working on it, whether it be an amino acid that's not being absorbed, or a deficiency in a vitamin or a mineral, or an imbalance in an organ. You can now focus immediately on that issue. There's no waiting for your test results for 3 weeks.
Yeah. So what, we worked with you a little bit on some clients that you've had before. Did we have to bring him to the office, or how did we?
Oh, no. Are you kidding? No, I love this. And I'm busy. I don't have time to, be doing all these tests. Yeah. And so I simply, because of my focus on education, my clientele, the clients I take, I'm sparing. And so when I get a client, I'm like, oh, I scan them. I have them go to Jared for a scan, and it's easy. I'll take the information, and you'll get, our clients or the TNCs who are listening, or medical doctors, your patient will get a test kit in the mail, and they just send it off, and then you get the results. So they can bring back the results and then have a nice conversation with you. And that's what I love, because it saves them time and money. And all of a sudden we know right where to start. There's no guessing game. And that's what I love about it. It's so worth it. It's just amazing.
Yeah. And I think when you look at it from a broad standpoint, if you look at the hair, the hair, saliva, and urine that we can do the test from, or as you've been involved in some of our remote testing, where we send a small little device to the individual. You can do it there, or you can do it in the client's office. How do you think that changes the dynamics of a person that wanted to be say a TNC or a chiropractor or MD that wanted to expand their practice? How would that impact them, as far as how they would plan from a marketing standpoint?
Fantastic. The remote unit is amazing. I have one out right now in Florida, another one being sent to a place in Utah. And because I can send the remote unit anywhere, and someone can be testing and running tests using the machine I would be using. And so now you have an office in Florida. You can have an office in Quebec. You can have an office in Pakistan. It doesn't matter, because you've got this remote unit, and the scans can be sent out. The results can be sent out. So it's an excellent way to market, an excellent way to grow anybody's business, and easy. The remote units are under $600. I mean, it's not; these aren't expensive. They're a few $100, So it's wonderful.
You're exactly right. Yeah, one of the interesting things that happened, I was working with a doctor out of Idaho. He was actually in Vegas, and I was in one of my offices in Wisconsin, and the client was in Idaho. And so he called me, he says, can you help me out with this client? So we logged into his server, and then and then I logged in, and she logged in. So we had 3 people logged into the server, and we're working with her, developing a plan of action, because she was not well. So I showed them, what the software was telling, and we did some frequency optimizations with it, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But the next day, here, this was all done remotely. Never came into the office. Took us about 30 minutes or so. The next day, she sent him a text, and I still have the text that he forwarded to me, that I can't tell you how much I appreciate the fact that you cared enough to work with me, and I actually slept and feel so much better this morning. So it's really, really interesting. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the software, but first, what I'd like to do is, for all of those, I see more questions popping in. What I'd like to do is demonstrate, as we mentioned, we have the Oscan cutting edge technology software. It's a Radionics package. And what I'd like to do is play this video and get your impressions of this. And what this video is going to show you is basically the nuts and bolts of it in a 2 or 3 minute video, the nuts and bolts of how it responds, so you can kind of visualize the concept. So we'll play that video right now.
We would like to demonstrate to you all the features of the Oscan Digital Body Analyzer. This is the dashboard. Let's examine first the single rad, or radionics. This offers customized radionic treatment based on the item that you enter in. For instance, affirmations or specific issues that a person has. Once you enter this, the program generates a custom radionic frequency and a color tone that you broadcast back to the individual. Multiple radionics does the same thing, but you can combine multiple issues that you want to address. If you have a subtle energy imprinter, you can copy or erase frequencies that you have imprinted into a specific product. In the Cepheid database, you can click on these categories and imprint the frequencies into a product. These can help balance out the tones in the body. The Inner Voice product is fabulous. This will help individuals that are in an emotional quagmire and can't seem to get out of it. How does this work? The person records their voice, and then the program analyzes their voice and uses frequencies that are far more effective in correcting the challenges. The Vital Scan report establishes the body's baseline to investigate what challenges exist in the body. It scans over 3,000 items in the body, referencing over 80,000 points and analyzing over 250,000 pieces of data that are being broadcast back and forth into the body. The points measured are queried 15 different ways during the test to confirm their accuracy. We will do a time-lapse video to show you the complete scan. This scan is completed in 2.5 minutes. Once the scan is finished, we would want to run a frequency optimization. What this does is creates a custom frequency based on the feedback from the body, and then returns the custom frequency back into the body to correct the imbalances that were detected. It also creates the correct duration that is needed. Once this is finished, a 24-page report is produced. The report identifies over 650 areas, and they are grouped in the following 47 categories: allergies and pollen, allergies and sensitivity, amino acids, bacterial diseases, basic physical, blood lipids, blood lipo, apolipoproteins, blood other, body reproductive function, male, bone and muscle condition, bone growth index, bone mineral density disease, brain nerve, cardiovascular, cerebral vascular, CBC report, Chinese meridians standard, Chinese meridians extraordinary, chakras, collagen index, digestive enzymes, endocrine glands, eye health, fatty acids omega-3, fatty acids omega-6, fatty acids other, fungus, gastrointestinal function, genetics, hormone, mood, sex, sleep, stress, human toxins, immune system, inflammation, oxidation, insulin resistance, kidney function, liver and gallbladder function, lung function, macro minerals, micro minerals, minerals, heavy metals, molds, pancreas beta cell, pancreas glycemic control, parasites, skin index, thyroid function, viruses, vitamins, coenzymes. How do you read the report? 5 is normal, 4 to 1 is a chronic condition with 1 indicating a critical issue. 6 to 9 is an acute condition with 9 indicating a critical issue. A red positive indicates an active immune response in the body. Negative is not. There are 2 scans side by side. The previous scan was the original scan we did. The second scan shows what effect the frequency optimization had on the health challenges. When we do not see improvement, that is an area we would want to focus on. Using this report, specifically looking at the amino acids, minerals, vitamins, parasitic load, and even the collagen index, will give you the information needed to identify which nutraceuticals are needed to help the body meet the current challenges and bring everything into balance. Next, the comprehensive analysis allows us to find out how those specific challenges are impacting the glands, organs, tissues, and systems of the body, as well as focusing on where the challenges specifically reside. Once you scan a specific gland, organ, tissue, or system of the body, you click on the database. The database is an encyclopedia of issues that provides us with detailed views and historical analysis on how specific issues or challenges are impacting the tissue that we are currently testing. By testing each item against the database, the system creates a specific optimized frequency that is transmitted back into the body to correct those challenges. Once this is completed, the readout shows what progress has been made to get the body back to normal. You can repeat this process with all of the areas of concern that were identified in the vitals report. Can we see how quickly the AO scan can identify the health concerns of an individual and seek to correct them? That is why Dr. James Oshman said, "When we leave energy medicine out of our biomedicine, we miss out on a vast amount of our healing potential." So don't miss out on the vast amount of healing potential that is at your fingertips.
All right, welcome back. So that video, what'd you think of that video?
Well, I love it. I'm positive everybody else loved it too.
It's not too complicated to use, is it?
No.
I can push a button.
Yep, you can all push a button.
We tell people if they can use Word, they can figure out how to run this. I think the hardest things is to figure out is how to put these fancy headphones on. But as we promised, we showed you the history of radionics and how radionics can impact your practice and how you can use it for the net profit. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to focus on the reporting feature. And this is just one facet of that. Karen, you can feel free to weigh in. I'm going to see if we can make this a little bit bigger for our people online so you can see everything. The nice thing with this report, as you can see, is it is color-coded for easy reading. So we have a normal range here, a critical on the far left and a critical on the right. What does that mean? Normal is right in the middle. And I guess, Karen, how would you describe, this normal reading? You have people that want to be balanced. How would you describe that balance that you're looking for?
Well, sometimes you wake up and you've got a sniffle, or sometimes you wake up, you just don't feel right. Your hormones are a little off, so we know something's not right. It might be low, might be a little high. When you're normal, you don't notice it. So that's basically what it is. And so when I do the scans and I look at the reports, I right away scan it for normal, see how well the person is doing, and then usually we'll find like this person here. This John Doe has got some issues with some allergens, and so when we look at that, we know we own in on what the most important aspect is to start working on.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that this vitals report, and again, this vitals report only takes a minute or two to run. But it can be customized with your own logo at the top, of course, the client information, the technician here, and the provider information. But as you can see from the report here, it focuses on allergens here, and the full list in this report are allergies, amino acids, bacterial diseases, blood, cardiovascular, full CBC report, Chinese meridians, everything from fungus, how the endocrine glands are adjusting gastrointestinal function, hormones, human toxins, immune system, insulin, kidney function, liver function, micro and macro minerals, heavy metals, mold, parasites, thyroid function, viruses, and vitamins. So it really has a litany of information that you can use in your tool chest. And again, you said something earlier, Karen, about the fact that the knowledge is probably the most important thing when you're looking at this. I always train people that you're looking for patterns. So when people come in with a that you see when you're teaching your TNC course, how do you explain to them how to look at these patterns?
Sure. Well, and that's probably the biggest thing, knowing where to start. I always look at organs. So we can tell right here, just looking at the allergen response, that we've got a few organs we want to take, and look at. So I think training is, and that's why knowing who you're working with is important, because having someone who's not studied the body look at this report. Luckily, you offer these great websites they can go to, and they can do some more study, but when someone like myself or an Dr. S and other doctors that we work with can look at this, boom, they know right away what to start with. They can jump right into a more, advanced protocol, saving them money. So I guess overall, you look at the systems, which organs, glands, or systems. We only have 11 basic systems of the body. So we look at, okay, and we might find that dehydration is the cause for many of the problems. We might find that a simple metabolism is the issue because we can't metabolize. Boom, we've got these issues looking at the 27 pages or 24 pages of the report. So it's just when you know what you're doing, when the human body, it helps, but don't not buy the unit because you don't know what you're doing, because we're here to help you. There's a lot of us out there who want to help people, and this is one way to do it. So, matter of fact, just so you know, we actually had someone buy the unit, and she's not going to do any testing. She's hiring TNCs to do the testing. She just had the money.
Oh, wow. That's great.
That's awesome,
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let's look at the, most people are saying, well, this looks complicated. There's a lot of stuff on here. So what is it telling me? Well, I'm just going to go over a couple examples here to show. So we're looking at allergy sensitivities, as most people have. I was mentioning to Karen before we started, I had a gentleman I was talking to the other day, and he says, oh man, I just got horrible allergies. And I says, well, have you been to the doctor? And he says, yeah. You know what they did is they hold this little vial in front, for 2 minutes, and they keep watching me, wondering if okay, what, wait a minute, what? Oh, yep, he's having a reaction. He's getting a sniffle. He says it just seems so archaic that there should be a better way to determine, what allergies or what potential allergies someone may have. And we're proud that this in the vital stage, it gives a good overview of how the body's handling sensitivities. Now, if we look at grains and barley, now this obviously is a John Doe, so it's a non-standard test, but we're just using it for an example's sake. What we did here is on the right-hand side, you see there's a previous scan. This is the first one we did, and right away we did what's called a frequency optimization. And as Karen can attest to, and how we've learned in our videos just recently, these are how the frequencies are impacting the tissue. Now, some changes are quick, but some are a process. It's I liken it to like learning maybe your first song where you know the lyrics. You didn't learn it the first time. It took you a few times to get conditioned to it, and that's what we're doing, is we're conditioning the body. So as we can see here, this demonstrates a sensitivity here for grains and barley. So it started out as a 9, and it was a positive. This means that it's an active issue in the body's immune system. It means the body's developing potentially an inflammatory response to grains and barley. And it's on the higher end, meaning it's current, usually. It's either a high degree of immune response, or it's a chronic, current issue. And then on the left-hand side, if it was like a 1 or something like that, we would see more of a chronic issue. So those are two ways that we can interpret depending on the category that we're in. But you see some other sensitivities, and oftentimes the grains and barley, well, we should try to stay away from those. Anyway, one of the reasons these pop up is because we don't have the right enzymes or minerals in the gut, right, Karen?
Absolutely.
You see that a lot, probably, huh?
Yep.
So you mentioned before about the importance of gut health. You have a few comments that you can talk about for a
Well,
second?
sure. In my speaking, my public speaking in my practice, I'm 9 out of 10 people coming in have had candida, gut health, microbes that are out of balance, SIBO. They have a lot of intestinal bacteria issues. Some of them overgrown, some of them not. And so I just am thrilled because on this test, I mean, we've spent $1,800 on tests for clients that most of it's covered right here. And I'm like, well, jeepers, that was amazing, and where it took 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks to get these testings back from other countries, boom, within, half an hour, we've got all of our results. So I'm just head over heels excited.
Yeah, and this does a very good job at being able to look at what's going on in the body in a broad spectrum. This is more broad spectrum based, but that's why it's called the vitals exam or vitals test, looking at the basic vitals of the body, of all the organs, glands, and systems. So that's what we're doing. And one nice thing is we have a website called aovitals.com that each one of these gets tied into, and it gives you some information on why this this has been a chronic issue for quite some time. We have a high issue here. So when you're missing some of those important amino acids that are responsible for so many chemical reactions in the body, well, things are just not going to function properly. Let's talk a minute about bacterial diseases a little bit. Now we see sometimes in the past the challenges that people face can be some chronic issues that are more genetic, that are passed on as miasms. Do you have a few points that you want to share with us, Karen, on miasms?
Well, miasms I always call them genetically inherited disease. That's really what they are. They come from the ancestors. It might be your great grandpa who really enjoyed, the trip over here from Spain or from Germany and had a few extra girlfriends. And so now all of a sudden you have gonorrhea miasm. You're not dealing with gonorrhea, but you have the frequency inputs of gonorrhea. And as biology has shown, our receptor sites of our cells are literally triggered 100 times faster with an electrical frequency than a molecule. And so all of a sudden, because we have these frequencies, we can have symptoms and not have anything showing up in the blood work because it's not there. There's no molecules of gonorrhea. This is a frequency thing. So miasms are easy to get rid of. But if you don't find them or detect them, and anybody who's ever had cancer, anyone who has epilepsy, anybody who has Tourette syndrome, I mean, there's abnormal sweating. I mean, there's just so many symptoms of 4 basic miasms or 8 basic miasms that it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see the results, which are pretty instantaneous after you get rid of a miasm.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Those genetic weaknesses can damage tissue on a long-term basis, and that's why we typically need to work to lessen those in the body. So that's a very good explanation. Appreciate that. So oftentimes what's missed is, if there's a lot of bacterial load, and sometimes have you ever seen with your clients that have come in that have been to a doctor and then maybe they didn't get to the bottom of the issue?
Oh, absolutely. One of the men that I had looked at his blood work, he was just loaded with parasites. I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, and I had done mine previously, and mine was the best they'd ever seen as a microbiologist. I was like, okay, good, but then they had this guy, and I was like, oh, and I started working with him. He's actually one of my students now, but because it's been, doctors have no idea because doctors really don't understand bacteria and parasites, and that's another reason I just love this program.
Yeah, that's a good point. We got that. It does have a full CBC test in it as well, as oftentimes if whether it's a female or male, there can be prostate or hormone issues, and those can be challenges at times, as I'm sure you'd agree, Karen.
Oh my gosh. Yes, very much so.
Continually. So we're gonna scan through this. This report is about 24 pages long, and I'm just scanning through some things that you can see. One of the neat things with the system that it does is when you're wanting to know where do you start first. Remember, we looked at the allergy issue. This is one way you can do it here is look and see where we started out before the frequency optimization, and then look at where we are now. So liver and spleen were 2 of the primary issues, with a secondary in heart and stomach. So those are some neat ways you can use the report to help get to the root issues. As we look at the chakras, you see the crown point here, where it was. So that gives you a good idea of, you might have to look at circulation, nerve activity in the head. So those are some other good ways. But you can look at this report. There's quite a few other areas in here. Was there anything that stood out in your mind, Karen, as you were looking at the report, any of the detail?
No, I just know just how easy it is to actually start looking at the big whole picture. That's what
Yeah.
I mean, this would be thousands of dollars. Didn't you have a medical doctor once tell you how much money it would cost to run all these tests, Jared?
Yeah, correct. And when you're looking at time and money, similar tests like this were probably around $10,000. He would estimate. There's not one out there that combines everything, but one of the biggest ones that we focus on here is you're looking at minerals, because minerals are the building blocks. So this really shows areas that you're low in or areas that you're high in, and lets you know how you need to work to straighten those out, so you can kind of chart a generic or general path for people to follow. And we talked a little bit about parasites. Do you see a lot of parasitic activity that comes in that you have to educate people on, that they're actually a cause of problems?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And people aren't aware that they can go swimming in a swimming pool and they can get parasites. They can eat a piece of meat and get parasites. Especially, I think interesting, Jared, is that people's hydrochloric acid levels are so off. They're so high, and they shouldn't be. We should have a nice low pH in that stomach. And because we don't, we have people that are running around with parasites that don't get killed in the hydrochloric acid where they're supposed to get killed. And so they just continue to grow and grow in the body. And so we see a lot of parasites. And again, we've got clients who have several types of parasites at one time, not just one, especially if they've been overseas. And traveling is so easy now that we've brought over to our country, just as well as Americans bringing parasites to other countries. It's not just in your dog. And I do need to just add something here. There are medical doctors out there who still will teach that there's no parasites in America. One of the leading medical doctors in one of the communities that I was presenting in actually told me that there were only 4 parasites in his state. And I was like, honey, do you ever deworm your dog? Because there's a lot more than 4 parasites.
Well, what was interesting is I had the privilege of going to a hospital and working with a team of doctors that were trying to figure out what was going wrong with this gentleman who was an athlete, professional athlete, a barefooter. And he was around the world teaching people how to barefoot. And one of the things that came up, and he was dying. The doctors, he saw 3 or 4 doctors in Australia. And they said, there's nothing we can do. You probably have about 6 months to live. And so he came to the United States, went to a few hospitals here in the States, and I finally got him on the 2nd hospital in the States here, trying to figure out a solution to his problem. And I was actually invited down by one of the administrators. And when I walked in the door, he says, would you mind testing this guy instead of me? And I says, well, I guess, but I'm not here to treat or diagnose. You understand that? And he says, yeah, don't worry about that. He says, we're just at a loss. We don't know where to go with this guy. So we used the same technology, and we sat him down. And one of the primary issues, he had a few other issues, but one of the primary issues was parasites. They were actually literally, I've never seen anybody that bad. So he called in the radiologist. As they're looking through the test results, I says, this is what it's saying. I don't know, does it make any sense? And they're looking through these piles and piles of information. And all of a sudden, one doc says, look at the liver report. That's exactly what it's telling us in the liver report. So he says, Mary, or whatever her name was, bring in the radiologist. So they had the radiologist come in. He says, why didn't we catch this on the scan if he's got parasites? And the radiologist says, everybody's got parasites, but they're never the cause of a problem. And he says, when they're affecting the liver like this, he's telling this to the radiologist, they are the cause of a problem. Okay, look at the liver results. I guess there was some liver enzyme results that they could see that there was problems. So long story short is they put him on, finally through the software, we're able to detect that he was, I said, were you bitten by a snake? Maybe about, I think it was 8 years ago that it showed up, and his eyes got wide and he said, yeah, why? And I says, well, it's showing that it's an active, ongoing issue that's causing an immune response right now. Does that make any sense? And he says, I was bitten by a black mamba. I almost died. So long story short is what they surmised was happening was that because they put him on a drug for parasites as well as an antivenom, and 2 weeks later he started getting better. So apparently he was having a delayed reaction, according to one of the doctors, to the venom that was in his system, stored in the fatty tissue. So as the parasites were dissolving the fat, basically, and he looked like he was wasting away, it was leaching back into his body, causing a problem, a neurological problem. So it's kind of interesting. But one of the just going through, you probably have similar experiences like that, but one of the biggest things we have is trying to identify the challenges that people face. So any final comments on the software and how you're able to focus on challenges, the speed at which a practitioner would use it in?
Well, I can, when I have a remote unit here or a unit here, literally within 20 minutes to a half an hour, I have an understanding of what's going on. Taking some time and actually diving into it, and depending on how much you like to dive into something, you can spend an hour or two if you're a practitioner before you even consult with your client. So you already know what's going on. Your consultation is very quick, and you're able to help them understand their own report. So I love it. I'm just absolutely.
Well, let's watch a brief video here on is it affordable and how can you incorporate it into a practice. Let's watch a brief video right now.
How can you incorporate the AO scan into your practice and increase your bottom line? How much revenue can be generated with just one client? The average retail cost of the Vital Scan is $300. Using one of the many additional therapies like Radionics, Inner Voice, or the comprehensive analysis would range from $50 to $150. The average cost of the nutraceuticals that they would need averages around $250. That would mean each customer that you test on the conservative side would net you an additional $600. If you test one customer a day, 5 days a week, in a month, your net revenue would be $12,000. But there's another way to increase your revenue. You can rent time on your server to other practitioners in your area. You would charge them $50 an hour. If 4 practitioners signed up for 10 hours a month, that would be an additional $2,000. What is the cost for the system? Less than what your net profit is on treating just one person. But what if you're just starting out, have bad credit, or don't have the down payment? We have another option. We will use our technology to do hair, saliva, and urine tests for you. How does the process work? We provide a link for you to place on your website. Your customer clicks on that and orders a test. We send the kit to them, they send it back, and we email the report to you so you can go over it with them. There's no cost at all to set up this program. You will make $150 per test, and add to that the nutraceuticals that you sell, you could net $400 for each test. 20 tests a month equals $8,000. So whether it's buying the AO scan or just having us handle the hair, saliva, and urine test, we will enable you to harness the power of using Radionics into your practice and increase your bottom line.
We're back. All right. Well, it's good to see you. That was. What did you think of that video? How to incorporate? Does it sound simple?
Yep, and I've seen it before because I'm so excited for TNCs and for other people, like chiropractics, to be able to just get one of these units and just have it in their front office. And I mean, their technician can do it and just get the scan done and then hand you the results. I mean, that's just it. You don't need to have. You qualify. You're a doctor. You've spent a lot of time on this. You're a TNC. You've invested years. So you are qualified to read the scan and help these people. So very, very effective. And the pricing, oh my gosh, Jared, it's amazing. I mean, it's, hello, $19 a day, you know.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. You break
amazing.
it down. Yeah, you break it down. Oftentimes, where the world is going as far as healthcare. And I know many of you are probably wondering about what's going to happen to my health care. Who's going to take charge? Everybody's relying on the government to solve the problem. But in reality, we each have to make our own decisions. We need to focus on what's good for our family. And looking at things holistically is not bad, and is definitely better than most alternatives out there. So what we're trying to do is provide you with the information, the education during this webinar to make informed decisions. Now, many of you are wondering, how much does it cost? How much does it cost to get involved? How much? It sounds really pricey. When you look at it, like Karen mentioned, there's multiple ways to get into this system, and you can get into it very reasonably. Any one of our representatives can help you determine what is the best course. We have financing options for the systems. And Karen, you mentioned you were using more hair and saliva and urine testing in yours, in your clinic there. Is there any other feedback that you can give on pricing?
Oh, sure. Well, the pricing, it's easy. I mean, it's you as a TNC or as a doctor get a discount, and you'll go over all that with them. Mm-hmm. But I think the part that is that I don't have time to, number one, I don't have a lot of clients come to our office anymore because I travel a lot and I'm educating and I'm very busy. We do have 11 children. So I have a lot going on in my own personal life.
Just 11, right?
Grandma, just 11. And I've got grandkids popping out all over us and weddings, this is fun. But I would love to have a TNC hired who sits here, and we have people come into my office on a regular basis because I love the frequency therapy. I love it. I love the megatherapy. That's and right. I would love to offer that. So by far, the first choice is to get a whole unit, and doing that for $600 a month or paying whatever it is amazing, because you'll make that in 2 tests. I mean, you'll make that immediately. That would be my preference. But however, if you're like me and I don't really have a lot of time for that, then I just go ahead and get my clients scanned, or our other, we have a couple of TNCs who are doing the same thing, setting up to at least get the scan, and they'll take it from there until they can afford the unit. Others are we just sold 2 again, just buying the unit. So.
Gotcha. Well, we appreciate you, Karen, so much. Any last comments that you have?
No, just enjoy the unit and get educated. So buy a unit from Jared, and if you need me, let me know. If you need us, let us know. But no, you'll enjoy every minute.
Well, we appreciate it, and we don't take any of that for advantage, because our concept here is we want to help people, and we've seen remarkable results in how this device has impacted the health of others, in showing the challenges that people face. If you or know somebody that might be interested, we're more than happy to talk with you about how to incorporate the Alive Innovations AOScan state-of-the-art radionics software into their practice. As I mentioned, there's many different modalities that can be adapted, whether you sub out the system to other practitioners, you're working on it online. There's much more that we could talk about. We just don't have time for today. So feel free to call us or email us at info@aliveinnovations.com or 800-454-1920. And with that, Karen, I appreciate you joining us today for today's webinar. And
it was wonderful. Thank you.
We'll talk again soon. Thank you all. Have a good evening.